Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to another video. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me here today. My name is Abbie and this is Spend More Time in the Wild. So we are all about inspiring and empowering individuals to get outside for the benefit of mental and physical health, whilst building meaningful connections with the natural world and with each other. It is a nice shady spot here. I'm very grateful for this because it's jolly sunny and hot out there. But I've been thinking recently about getting outside, preparing yourself for backpacking. So I'm sort of been planning an actual full series with lots of different information, videos, sort of how to choose different stuff, and I'm going to talk more about that as we progress through this video. But until then, because shooting a series does take a while, I basically just wanted to give you a quick overview of how to start backpacking, some stuff to consider to get yourself ready, prepared, and inspired as well to hit the trail wherever that may be. So it can be very overwhelming, exciting, but certainly overwhelming to have an urge to go backpacking. Maybe you've seen some of my videos, someone else's videos, you've been inspired and you want to get outside, you want to do it. But how do you do backpacking? So basically, if you don't know me and what I do, I have walked a lot of long distance trails. It's a big part of what I do. We spend more time in the wild, shooting different documentaries. So I'm very experienced in the backpacking scene, and I wanted to just sort of pull together some of my ideas and experience within this video, again, to give you a quick overview of sort of how to start backpacking. So let's take the concept. You have been inspired to go backpacking, but what are you going to do with that inspiration? Where are you going to go? How are you going to use that energy? First things first is to have a think about, where do you want to go? Why is it you want to go backpacking? Now really break this down because, you know, especially when you're on the trail, it can be super nice and super, you know, it's kind of important as well to make sure you've got that motivator, that solid foundation of this is why you're doing what you're doing, and we'll come into later, but that can really help with your mental resilience, which is an important part of training and being on the trail. But essentially, what trail do you want to do? Is there a specific route you want to do? Is it something like the West Highland Way, the Coast to Coast, the Ridge Way, Pennine Way, something like that you've seen as quite a popular trail? Or is it you want to create your own trail because, you know, you want to visit sort of your ancestral homelands, or you want to go somewhere where there's good food? Cornwall has pasties. Who doesn't like a pasty? Or is it because, you know, there's some archaeological site you want to see? Like maybe you want to make your own route that goes past Stonehenge or some Iron Age hill fort. Maybe there's a geological feature you want to see. You want to see some mountains, so you might want to make a trail through the Lake District. You want to hit the coast, so you might come down to the Jurassic Coast. Whatever it is that works for you, have a think about, why do you want to backpack? What do you want to see on the trail? So the next thing to think about as well is, what type of experience do you want? Are you wanting to be sort of as self-sufficient as possible? You're going to wild camp along the way? Are you going to stay at campsites or hostels? Are you going to B&B? Because of course that's going to determine the kit and everything that you're going to be taking, but more on that a little bit later. So what type of experience do you want to have when you're on the trail? Next up, how much time have you got? So you might say, okay, I want to walk Land's End to John O'Groats. I mean, that's a big chunk of time, but can you realistically take that much time off work or out of whatever experience it is, your family unit? Yes, no, maybe. Setting those big goals is super awesome, but I would strongly encourage you to sort of pick a trail local to you, that the logistics can be quite easy to sort out access to, and that's just going to sort of take some of the stress off, especially if, you know, you do find yourself feeling anxious. Yes, you're inspired and excited, but also, you know, again, it can be quite overwhelming preparing to get onto the trail. So have a think about potentially a local trail that you might be able to do, because again, you might be able to cut off some of the sort of traveling either side of that. So time frame is super important to consider. And then basically, the only other thing I would add to that is you don't have to do the full-on backpacking experience as your first time walking a long distance trail. Absolutely, you know, you can just lug everything from A to B, do it all, bosh it out, happy days. Don't forget though, you can do it as a selection of day walks. So especially if it's local, if you've got some family or friends who might want to help you, you could do circular walks and complete that. So things like, for example, the Southwest Coastal Path. So I live near the Southwest Coastal Path here in Dorset, well, Somerset, Dorset, right on the border actually. But you know, it's 630 miles. Not everybody is going to have the time, energy, stamina, enthusiasm to walk the entire route. So what a lot of people do is, you know, they'll head out for day walks over a selection of months or years and tick off the entire trail, which is super awesome, can be super satisfying, and just keeping a little log of that can just be a really rewarding way to complete a trail. So you've chosen what trail you want to do, you know you've got the time to do it, you're feeling inspired by it because it's got X, Y and Z that you want to see or do or experience when you're on the trail. You're possibly going to camp, maybe you're going to do B&Bs. So what is next? Kit. We're going to start with kit. So kit, okay, that's a bit of a minefield. And I've already mentioned, you know, I want to make a full series sort of covering in-depth details on how to choose kit, so I am going to keep this quite brief. But essentially, there's 3 or 4 main things to really consider when it comes to picking your kit. First things first, though, is do not get washed away by the whole ultralight scene. If you've been camping before, you know, maybe with family or friends, you've probably got a lot of the kit that you need to go hiking. Absolutely, it might not be the lightest kit there in the world, it might not be the highest quality, but if you're just wanting to get on the trail, which is what we're talking about, we want to just remove as many barriers as possible. Physical barriers, mental barriers. We just want to make the trail as accessible as possible. We don't want excuses, we don't want things to get in the way. So if you've been camping, you've probably maybe got a tent, maybe it's a 1-person, 2-person tent. Again, might not be the lightest, might not be the highest quality spec, but it's a tent, right? You might have a sleeping bag, you might have a roll mat, you might have a cooking system. Obviously, if it's a whole big family tent, then it's going to be a little bit different. But yeah, so the main things you really want to consider are sort of your sleeping system if you're camping. Just getting you can get pretty cheap 1-person, 2-person tents that, you know, are under 1.5 kilograms, and that's pretty decent. You know, 100 quid or so is, yeah, it's a chunk of money, but don't forget it's all an investment. You can also hire tents. If you've got friends, you can borrow tents. So think outside the box a little bit if there is a financial restriction there about how you can access equipment that you might need. Next up is your backpack. So backpack is super important because that essentially is going to be your home. Everything is going to be in there. So making sure you've got a backpack that fits everything in, that fits you comfortably. It is inevitable that when you're on the trail, especially hot, sweaty days like today, that you are going to get chafing, you are going to get rubbing, you are going to get sore, particularly your shoulders, particularly your hips, sometimes in the back as well, depending on what pack you've got. But basically, making sure you've got a pack that suits you. Some people like quite thick shoulder straps, some people like thin, some people like to have a hip belt with pockets on, some people don't. So there's loads of different backpacks out there, and again, I'm not going to dive into details on how to pick a backpack, but basically just making sure you've got one that you know fits well, that loads well, that you know how to pack that backpack, but that comes into skills, so we'll talk about that. Again, try not to overcomplicate it. Don't get obsessed with the weight. Just get one that feels right. Even if you've got one from, you know, good old school days, bring that out of the attic, dust it off. There you go. You've got a backpack ready to go. Awesome. So we talked about backpacks, we talked about tents. The other thing as well is your boots, your shoes, your feet. Your feet are going to carry you on the trail. Yes, your legs, but also your feet. I want to talk more about foot carrying a little bit. Basically, making sure you've got good quality boots. And what do I mean by good quality? Again, don't mean the most expensive, don't mean the top of the range, highest spec boots. I mean something that's got enough support and has got enough cushioning to support you when you're out on the trail. You may be carrying between 10 and 20 kilograms on your back, depending on what you're doing, where you're going, etc., what kit you're using. And yes, there is the whole using trail running shoes movement, especially within the ultralight scene, and I have no issue with that, but I think a lot of people underestimate the support that boots, just even having a slightly higher boot around your ankle can provide, especially on road sections as well. The cushioning in the boot is just going to help protect your body, your knees, your ankles from that repetitive strain, that wear and tear over the long haul. Yeah, it is a long haul often, the trails, to be honest. But so your boots, making sure often, you know, going a size, half a size or a full size bigger can really help again with comfort, because our bodies naturally swell up, feet especially, throughout the day, also when we're moving. So you just really want to try to prevent that rubbing and any friction that might happen to occur. But again, we'll talk about foot care later, but basically your boots are super important as well. And just to run through some other things really quickly, you know, you want to think about your sleeping system, sleeping bag, roll mat. You want to think about, actually, coming back to sleeping bag and roll mat, I kind of missed something on the beginning bit of planning your trail. What season do you want to hike in? So if you're new to backpacking, something like spring, summer is going to be a good season to go in. You've got spring showers, you've got summer sunshine. Autumn, obviously temperature's a little bit cooler, weather's a little bit more unstable. And winter, depending on where you're going, you know, winter could be sort of the next level, especially if there's snow and ice about. So basically just getting comfortable being on the trail first is what I'd really recommend. But coming full circle with that, you know, your sleeping system needs to match the season that you're going to be out and about in. So having that roll mat, having that sleeping bag that's going to keep your core body temperature nice and stable. Sleep is so important. I think a lot of people underestimate the power and importance of sleep day to day as well as on the trail. You know, we need to restore our minds as well as our bodies. So prioritizing that sleep in your tent, your sleeping bag, your roll mat, super key. Other things as well is your cooking system. So what sort of stove setup are you going to use? Are you going to use sort of alcohol bottles? Are you going to use sort of a jet boil, classic jet boil, or pocket rocket with the gas, butane, propane gas? Again, depending on where you're going, you know, higher altitude, the gas systems don't tend to work that well. And in colder weather as well. So it's all different things to consider. Some people like to take sort of small fire pot things, so you can feed sticks in and cook on that, which is quite an experience. But of course, remember, leave no trace, super important. But having a think about your cooking system as well. With regards to tents, don't forget, again, thinking outside the box. Doesn't have to be sort of your classic 2-skin tent. It can be a single skin tent, it can be a bivvy and tarp, whatever works for you, depending on your experience, your comfort, where you're going, what you're doing. Just lots of things to think about. And again, it can be overwhelming, so write this stuff down, talk to people. So many online communities. And as well, if you'd like to join our community, spend more time in the wild, we've got our Patreon group. So as little as $3 a month, you can join our Patreon community, connect with people from all around the world, having awesome conversations about getting outside, planning trails, wherever they may be, for the benefit of mental and physical health. So please do check that out, link is below. So we've talked about sort of kit and basically brushed over that. So the next thing to do, so we've got our plan, we've got our kit, is let's think about training. So within training, there's sort of 3 main areas I want to focus on. So there's mental, there's physical, and there's your skill set. So I'm going to go backwards through that. So skill set, what do I mean by that? Like, you're just going hiking, right? Few things to think about, and they sort of can all tie in. Once your skill set is sort of tidier, that can really help with your mental resilience and also your physical health. But essentially, I'm talking about things like navigation. Even if you're walking something like a national trail, so is it 16 national trails now, I think, here in the UK. Very popular, very well marked, very well maintained trails here in the UK. Still, you need to have basic understanding of using a map and compass. Can you orientate yourself? Can you take a bearing? Can you navigate through sort of misty whiteout conditions? Making sure you stay safe, and that's going to, again, really help with that mental resilience. So that's that, looking after your body. So sort of outdoor first aid, again, looking after your feet. Again, we'll come to that in a minute. That's something I keep wanting to come back to, but just keeps coming into the picture. Foot care is super important. And as well, you know, making sure you know how to use everything in your first aid kit. Often overlooked part of hiking, especially within the ultralight scene. You know, people will just take a couple of plasters and that's it. If you get by, that's fine. But it's also the way we operate with Spend More Time in the Wild, is we live not just for ourselves but also for others. So for me, it's super important, and I know for many other people within our community, to have a half decent first aid kit, because even if we don't need it, somebody else might need it. So getting familiar with first aid is a really good skill to have when you're out and about in the hills, so you can basically look after yourself as much as possible. Other things to consider are expedition skills. So what I mean by that is essentially getting comfortable pitching your tent, getting comfortable sleeping in your tent, getting comfortable using your stove setup. Basically just practice, even if it's just in your garden, even if it's just your local park, even if it's just to some tarn for a lunch and then you walk back again. Just getting comfortable using all of your equipment. Those are expedition skills, and again, that's going to just help with your mental confidence when you're out on the trail. So that's sort of just a brief overview of some skill set things to consider. Next up is physical things to work on as you're progressing and getting ready for your time on the trail. Now, a lot of people sort of overthink physical training. I think exercise is the word that people call it, but I think it's important more just to focus on movement. Again, don't overcomplicate it. You're trying to get fit for the trail, you're trying to get your body strong, so go out hiking. Do as many day hikes as you can. You know, if you've not got the time to do more than 1-2 day hikes in a week, then just walk to the store, walk to pick the kids up from school, hop on a bike. You know, just trying to get as many steps in as you can. Load up your backpack, get comfortable with some weight in there. Just getting your legs a little bit stronger, you know, some very basic calisthenic movements. So basically body weight movements, you know, some squats, some lunges, some press ups. You can't do a full press up, do it elevated, so against a tree, against the wall, against your kitchen counter. Kettle's boiling, you've got a few minutes there just to move your body a little bit. Do some step ups on the steps. Anything that gets your heart rate going, even if it's literally for 30 seconds, is all going to really benefit your body's sort of physical well-being. That's all movement. Make it fun, make it enjoyable. Even if it's literally you guys join, like, I don't know, the tennis club with a friend, running around, having a bit of a laugh, it's all really good, and it's all going to help get you ready for the trail. So that's a little bit on the physical movement side of things, and then the other side, the third side, is mental. So mental resilience, often overlooked, very seldom talked about when you're on the trail. So we started this talking about why you want to hit the trail, and that is your foundation. What does this trail mean for you? So for me, I like getting outside because I'm inspired by nature. It helps me be creative. It helps me get in touch with myself. I feel more peace and calm and inspiration. I freaking love nature, man. Basically, that's my foundation. And it feels like home. The trail feels like home for me. So I've built that foundation. So whenever I go out onto the trail and I find myself in a bit of a sticky situation, I can tap back in to that calm, tap back into that sense of meaning and purpose that I get from being outside, and that helps me sort of work through challenges. Basically, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable is a very, I don't know, man, it's just a good skill to have. And the more time you spend on the trail, the more experience you get, the more comfortable you get using your skills, pushing yourself, more mistakes you make and things you can learn from. That's just going to really help build up that mental resilience. If you find yourself lying in bed knowing that you're going to go out for a day hike, bags packed, but you just can't be bothered to move, tapping back in. Why are you choosing to do this? What is that foundation? And then getting yourself moving, being kind to yourself all the time, and loving yourself through the process is it's, again, something that's not talked about very much, but it can really make a difference and open your eyes when you're on the trail. When you find yourself struggling, it's very easy to just, go inwards, lose yourself in your head, lose yourself in the pain. But it's important, especially if we're in places that make us feel alive, to look outwards, to connect with the power of nature. So that's a small bit on mental resilience there. So, just coming full circle with everything we talked about. We talked about planning our trip, we talked about getting our kit ready, and we talked about some training. So next up, we're going to talk about getting experience in. So basically, again, start small, keep it simple. Going out for day hikes, going out for perhaps one night, camping somewhere, find a campsite, just get familiar with being in a camping system. Maybe you want to try wild camping. If you're uncomfortable doing that on your own, maybe go with a friend. Again, talk to online communities, finding good safe places to do some wild camping. Even if you're hiking to your friend's house and you're going to pitch up in the garden. Just practice, get comfortable with yourself, get comfortable with your experience, and then gradually, you'll just build up and get ready for the actual trail itself. So, it is time to hit the trail. It's exciting. We're catching the train, plane, bus, car, walking out our front door. We're getting ready to go. So, you've got your kit, you know what you're doing, you've left your you've got your emergency contacts, but you've left your itinerary with somebody, you check the weather, all the safety stuff that I'm not going to run through now, but you're hitting the trail. You're now on the trail. Super exciting. Day 3, your feet are rubbing a little bit, you're feeling tired. This is not quite what the film's made out to be. Tap back into that mental resilience. You've got that physical strength that's going to come. Slow it down, don't rush, take pictures, breathe deeply, and look after your feet. Foot care. So if you want to know more about foot care, I have got quite a comprehensive foot care video, which is just up there now, above me, and the little white banner, so you can click that. Also in the description below. And catching those hop stops straight away, catching yourself if you feel yourself mentally dropping, checking in with people if you feel like you need to do that, or perhaps your experience, you just want to shut off from the world, totally fine as well. Just make sure people know where you're supposed to be and when you're supposed to finish. So essentially, that's the basics of how to start backpacking. So planning your trail, getting your kit ready, getting yourself ready, and then hitting the trail and just making sure you're fully immersed in that experience. I think when you hit the trail, it can't be a half-hearted thing. It's a commitment. It's not just to the trail, but also to yourself, to see yourself through that experience. When you go through a hiking experience, a through hike, whether it's like 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 weeks/months, you change, you grow, you expand, you forge yourself into a slightly different version of yourself, and often it can be a bit of an unpicking. You can fall apart to get remade, and you can come back and pop back out into society at the other end and find that you're just slightly different. Because, maybe you've done a solo trip and you've really got to know yourself. You've had a bit of a heart-to-heart chat. So just be prepared for that as well. There's something called the expedition blues that a lot of people struggle with once they get off the trail. It's something I personally know quite well, and having that on top of sort of depressive episodes as well can be very difficult. So basically, I always like to touch on this as well, sort of as a safeguarding thing, because again, we're going on the trail to love ourselves, so we can do that off the trail as well. So if you do find yourself really just missing the experience you've had, missing that solitude, missing the challenges, missing the wildlife and the big open spaces and the time under the stars, just remember, you know, you can take some of those things from the trail into your day-to-day life. You can take the way you connect with people, you can take the way you connect with nature, you can take the way that you structure your day. So for example, with me, when I'm on the trail, you know, I like to start early. You know, I'll be on the trail 6:37, everything's packed up, I'm walking, usually with a mug of coffee in my hand, good times. And then, you know, I'll reach camp sort of, or I'll make camp around 3-4ish, then I can just chill out and write my diary and read the guidebook and plan the next day, do a few pieces to camera, and then I'm usually asleep by 9, and that's pretty much how I function here and now when I'm off the trail. And it just gives me that comfort. It means I can slot in and out of life on and off the trail quite easily. So think about the things that you can do to adapt to life on the trail and life off the trail as well. So that's pretty much that. Hopefully that is helpful for you to help get you ready to hit the trail. I know, well, many of you guys will be watching this during sort of lockdown with the COVID-19 situation. I can say personally my entire year has been turned inside out. I'm not able to jump on the trails as I'd hoped to, but it's been nice to have the space, and I can categorically 100%, 1000% say that the experience and again the mental resilience I've taken from my time on the trail is helping me get through the challenge of being under lockdown. You can transfer your skills, so I'm super excited to hear how you guys get on when you do hit the trail, whatever trail that may be. I really hope it is a game-changing or inspiring experience for you, and if it's not, you'll still learn something, you'll still come back slightly different. So let me know in the comments below how you get on. Don't forget guys, if you've got any questions, yes, leave it in the comments, but you can message me on social media, so Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, just drop me a message or a comment, sharing just different tips and advice throughout the weeks as they go by as well on social media, so definitely worth jumping on that. I mentioned Patreon as well. If you want to join that safe online supportive community, then please do have a look at our Patreon community, and don't forget to subscribe and share this video if it's been helpful for you. So guys, that is all from me for now. Enjoy your adventures wherever they may be. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay wild. I'll see you soon.